Hello and welcome to the Being Human podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Bottaro, and today I have an awesome guest, somebody I've been talking to about getting on the show for a while, and he's one of our very own mentors, one of our graduates of our certified Catholic Psych training program, and he also does a lot for content and copy and a lot within Catholic Psych. As is often the case with some of our amazing graduates from our certification program, the abilities and skills and talents that they have, they find ways to end up contributing in many ways to our Catholic Psych mission. And so I'm so grateful to Jack Beers, who has done all of the above, and he's just a remarkable person. He's an incredible mentor, and he also just has a great mind for the church, a heart for the mission, and I love unpacking so many things with him. He often gives me much of the inspiration for content and strategy, what we're going to talk about here on the podcast. And so now he gets to actually take part in, and you get to see some of his genius and his mindset. What we're talking about today is for the month of November, as we spend the month reflecting on, meditating on, and praying for the dead, our dearly departed, our faithful departed, whom we pray for. The church has a whole month set aside for them, and so this opens up a lot of conversation about dying and death, about meditating on the last things, on the role and purpose for why the church does this, and how it makes us healthier and happier. So it's kind of a little plot twist here. The thing that we're all avoiding, when we confront it and we turn towards it and we embrace it in the light of Christ, of course, it becomes a path to flourishing. So I hope this blesses you. I hope you enjoy this episode, and hopefully more to come from Jack as well. God bless you. I spent the last 10 years learning how to help people using the best techniques available in psychology integrated with the Catholic faith. Now we've figured out that there's a better way to help people than just slapping a Catholic label on the same secular model of therapy you find anywhere else. The real question is, how will we make this shift to a new model of truly Catholic accompaniment, keeping the psychological sciences in mind while opening up to a more human and more effective approach? This podcast is here to give you the answer. Join me and follow along as I take you behind the scenes of what this new model looks like, using recorded audio from sessions working with my team, with colleagues, and even directly with clients. My name is Dr. Greg Bottaro, and I want to welcome you to the Being Human podcast. What did you want to talk about today?
I love that the church dedicates an entire month in the year, right before we get to a new liturgical year. The church dedicates a whole month for praying for the dead. I think we've lost. We used to wear, Jimmy Stewart's my favorite actor of all time, and It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite movie of all time. And one of the things that always struck me about that is that he wore, for the better part of a year after his dad died, he wears a black armband. I remember being like, what's with the black armband? And my mom was like, well, in that time frame, to mark the mourning, they would wear the black armband. And there are a number of things that we've lost culturally that are traditional hallmarks, which is we have rhythms in particular, to mourning people who we loved. And so I think it's amazing that the church does this. And it's one of my favorite liturgical months of the year. So I was like, yeah, Dr. Greg, give me your thoughts on mourning, and what proper mourning looks like individually, but also culturally.
Yeah. I think culturally, the ritual around death is super important. And I remember when I was little, I heard this falsely that, the church, like we have funerals for the grieving. And it's only partially false. It's only partially wrong, because obviously we need to pray for the dead, and we're helping them move along and hopefully be purified and get to enjoy the fullness of heaven. So it is for the prayers and the sacrifices for the faithful departed. But there is a real significance to the ritual and also the prayers and the spiritual consolation that needs to come for us who are left behind. And being able to do that together as a community is huge. And I've studied before different cultures around the world, different rituals, different patterns and practices. And it's fascinating, especially when you get to the more third world or even indigenous cultures. They're so much more in touch with death. And then they have a lot more sophisticated ritual built in, where there's periods of time that are set aside, that are dictated, that people have to be mourning. Whether it may, and maybe the armband was sort of an artifact left over from even more explicit times past with more ritual. But it's like, yeah, this actually ties in really deeply to our model and the way that we train people about our psyche from a Catholic anthropology. And it's the very simple fact that we all know we're going to die. But every single fiber in our being revolts against death. So God made us with a survival instinct. He made us with a unity towards life, a sort of inner dynamism, an inner movement towards stay alive. Like life is good, move towards light, move towards life, move away from death and darkness. And we have like the survival instinct that kicks in. We have biological systems that are built to help protect us and move us towards life. And yet we're looking around and you realize pretty quickly everybody actually dies. And then you start to put two and two together and you're like, wait a minute, if those people are over there and these people over there and they're human and wait, all humans, wait a minute, I'm human. Wait a minute, I'm going to die. So then the ritual becomes much more personal. And the whole impact of death on a culture and a community and a society becomes very personal. And the way that we treat the dead becomes very personal. And everything, the way we talk about the dead, like all these things are so personal. So I just think it's really important that the church sets the time aside. And I think we need to do a much better job of digging into it and really understanding it.
I'd also thinking about the model that we follow. It's like, well, Jesus is our blueprint, right? And one of the strangest gospel passages for me is Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. It's so disorienting. And I remember first reading it and being like, Jesus isn't acting the way that you would think someone would act in response to death. Like he waits for Lazarus to die. Then he knows that he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. And if I just put myself in Jesus' position, I would be like, I'd come in on the white horse. I'd come in being like, wipe your tears, everybody. Like this is gonna, I'm taking them all away. I'm turning mourning into dancing right now. I'm going to resurrect this guy and our friend, your brother, and you don't have to cry anymore. And this is going to be awesome. Watch this. Lazarus come out. But he doesn't do that. He literally comes in and just mourns and cries and is present and adds so much dignity to being a person who has full 100% confidence in the resurrection and in the power of God. That he shows that we can have that confidence, but it is still good and human and healing and necessary to mourn, to be crying, to be upset, to be separated and know that somebody suffered and to actually sit in that for a little while and not rush it. And I think so often culturally, but also as Catholics, we go on one end of the spectrum or the other. Either death has the final word and it's so horrible and we never get over it and we never move past it, or we're so tainted by it and we're so hurt by it that it like limits our belief in God. Or we go to the other side. It's like, oh, it's okay. Like they're in a better place. It's totally fine. And to be Catholic is to be in both, not to be in neither, but to be in both, to literally spend a full month every year for the rest of your life being sad that you're separated from the people you love and praying for their soul.
Thinking about death is one of the four last things. Like we're supposed to think about our death. We're supposed to memento mori, St. Francis with the skull. Like we have this embedded within our Catholic spirituality and culture. And I think we should do a much better job of really thinking about that, and creating opportunities. Like really every day we should be thinking about our own death. And that's not morbid in a psychopathological way. It's not a diseased brain that thinks about death every day. It's actually a really healthy person who does that.
Yeah. And I would love your thoughts on this, because I am someone who thinks about my death quite often, but my thinking around my own death has changed recently. I've been thinking about my own death, as an eternal being. Like I'm going to leave this earth and enter into eternal living. And I don't just think about my death as in like, I only have so much time with my wife and kids. Like I need to soak it up. But it's also like what I'm doing in the here and now will echo in eternity. And I'm not dying and then it's a black hole and there's just pure nothingness. And it's like, I should just make the most of whatever time I have here. It's like, I need to think about my death because my daily actions in relationship with other people will actually echo in all of eternity. Like C.S. Lewis talked about how grace works backwards, and how our lives, the people who are in heaven will have said they're always in heaven because grace works backwards and redeems even some of the darkest moments, because it's like everything was an essential step to get to heaven. And hell works backwards too, that even the pleasure you got from sin will be taken from you because it will be part of the step to be in hell. Like thinking about my death in eternal terms has changed it from like this temporal frenetic energy to like this building up treasure in heaven.
Yeah, it's like a preamble. It's
like a training ground. It's more like a gym than an arena, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly right. And then it does put everything else into perspective. And thinking about even our daily anxieties. I think about this, especially being a parent with kids. It's like, man, I mean, and we work with people who have lost their kids tragically. And, I think about that for myself. Like if one of my children died, then it would put this other anxiety or stressor in my life into totally different perspective. And then, it's like, oh, there's certain things happening, or, I don't know the outcome of this thing that might happen. And it's like, if you lost a child, what would you think about that other question, that other unknown? You would not care. You would be so devastated with grief, and it would show the reality of that other thing in comparison. And so I think about that, and it's just one example of an emotionally connected, time limited, life is short reality when it's somebody you love. And then you realize, like, wait a minute, these things are not important. And what am I wasting my time on today? It's like, thank God my kids are healthy. I didn't lose a kid. But if I just spend a couple minutes reflecting on what that would mean, all of a sudden it rewrites my day. And I'm like, I don't care about this thing. Do I care about it? Yes, of course I care about it. Am I going to be pulled under its weight? Am I going to be burdened by it? No, not anymore. Because now I realize, like, it wouldn't be important if I had some tragedy happen to my children. And then I realized nothing happened to my children today. Praise God. Now I have a reason to be joyful that I wasn't even necessarily thinking about before. And it puts this other thing into light. So just one example, in our own death, like you said, it puts the importance of our actions into perspective in a different way. It reorders our life. And so it's, I always come back to our work, because so many people are suffering, and it's like, I've tried to do everything. I did the journaling, I did the CBT, I did that. Maybe I tried this medication, I tried all these things. It's like, there's some things that are so fundamentally basic in our faith and our spiritual tradition. Have you tried really meditating on your death? Not ruminating, not anxious about dying, but meditating on death. And when we enter into that, it's amazing how much that reorders our life. All of a sudden we have all different opportunities for growth, for healing, for flourishing, for feeling better, for having more peace, because we followed this ancient prescription and simply embracing the things. And the other point I wanted to circle back on too is Lazarus. That's a profound reflection. And also I was thinking about Christ himself, like the agony in the garden, as he's considering his own death. You're like, this is the savior of the world. This is the creator of the universe. This is the Alpha and the Omega. What's he doing sweating blood in the garden? Why is he filled with anxiety? Well, obviously he's going through some pretty torturous pain coming up, and he can see it, but there's something so real about entering into the finality and the cosmic tragedy of death that was our inheritance, and in entering into humanity, that he was taking on all of the consequences of sin into his humanity. That's what the perfect manifestation of the reality of death looks like in a human. The agony in the garden. Like, we could all be suffering an agony in the garden like daily. And that's what maybe the month of November actually is like. Let's really enter into this. If you had the perfection of the purity of the mind of Christ, and you looked around and you were thinking about people dying, it causes blood to come out of your pores. Like, that's the real right response. That's the perfected human response to the reality of death. And he shows us the way there.
And even the step further of, in the midst of that agony, like, what does actually bring peace? And what brings peace is, I'm going to do your will. Like, no matter what, I'm going to do your will. I don't want to do this thing. I'm feeling so much anxiety about doing this thing. I feel so much pain about doing this thing, about taking on the weight of the world. And it's this simple yet profoundly difficult thing of, I'm going to do your will, and I'm going to die following you, and there's peace in that. And I think that plays out. Like, I've been to more funerals than I would care to have gone to. It's not like I've been to a lot, but if you've been to any funerals, right? Like, it's like I've been to more than I care to go to, a singular one. And there's a palpable difference. Genuinely, there is a palpable difference in the room, not in age necessarily, but in manner of living. Like, there is a hint of joy in the room when you're like, no, this person lived well. This person died with their boots on. This person made really the most, not necessarily of their talents or their efforts or anything. Like, this person was great at loving. This person was great at serving other people. This person was really virtuous. There is a degree of joy in someone passing on, having run the race well. And like, the antidote, if there can be such a thing, I think the anxiety probably remains, but the best thing to bring about peace is the simplicity of, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I think that's also part of the blueprint and the necessity of November. It's like, it is as simple as, Lord, what is your will for me? Like, in the here and now.
Yeah, that's huge. I don't think I've made the connection before about how it's the end of the liturgical year. That's really interesting as well. And it's kind of like, I'm thinking about the beginning of the next year and what we typically think about for New Year's resolutions. But we have that yearly annual cycle, and it's almost like we get to the end of the year, and now we're going to mourn the dead. We're going to pray for them. We're going to join together as a community to reverently bless and sort of mark how important this passing is, because it's the reality that we all face. And then it puts into perspective the purpose for our life. And then we can ask that question, how well have I lived God's will? And how can I make amends? How can I make transition? And now we're entering it like fresh start, come Advent, come, the next year. And then now it's like, all right, I'm back at it again, refreshed, maybe enlivened a bit more, ready to live the next year with greater fervor, with greater devotion and intention.
The whole time we've been talking, my whole father's side of the family is Jewish, and it grew up in a lot of Jewish traditions. And if you really enter into the Jewish tradition of sitting Shiva, and I think one of the most underrated and powerful parts is the family buries. So the family is the one that picks up the shovel and drops the dirt on the casket. And it's like it is a physical act of mercy. It's not just an emotional or spiritual act of mercy. It's also physical, which I love all of that. But now what you're calling to mind is Yom Kippur and the Day of Atonement. It like is almost a month of that, where it in a traditional Yom Kippur service, not only are you fasting, but you go through almost an hour-long examination of conscience of the past year. And you're thinking about it in light and in context of your own death. And you're thinking about the people who were not written in the book of life this particular year. And you're praying for those who have died. And you're going through this whole process. And then it ends with this futuristic prayer of like, Lord, may my name be written in the book of life for the coming year and for eternity. And I think it matters that the year ends with Christ the King, a feast of Christ the King, that he is Lord of all, he is King of all. And at its most basic level, he is the King. We are in service to the King and we follow him. But there is this whole like November, it's getting darker. In a lot of the country, it's getting colder. Let me think about the ways I've come up short. Let me think about the ways I need to improve. And let me beg the King, who is truly in charge of all things, that I be at least written in the book of eternal life, if not life in heaven. And that is just, we talk about life-changing things. Like if I actually did that this month, I'm literally just sitting here thinking about it. If I did that this month, if I did a serious year in review and I thought about what the last 12 months have been, and I had a birth of a child on October 31st. So it's literally like I can just mark his whole life in this liturgical year. It would be profoundly impactful. And there's no reason why I shouldn't do that, I should do that. I should enter into it with the church.
Yeah, that's what the church provides for us. It gives us these frameworks.
The context, yeah.
It gives us all the stuff that we can flourish by and actually enter into.
Yeah.
You mentioned October 31st, besides, birth of a child, which is beautiful. Also I was already thinking about Halloween and All Hallows Eve and then, All Saints Day and sort of that transition into November where we're really sort of thinking about the dead and the next world and how our world has completely distorted this idea. And it's kind of makes a mockery of it. It kind of, it diminishes it of any real value or weight. At worst, it actually glorifies evil. But I've never really had a problem with Halloween. I'm not one of the parents that thinks their kids shouldn't be dressing up for Halloween or that we shouldn't. Actually, I think there's a really deep and beautiful Catholic way to understand Halloween, and we should actually really celebrate it. And in terms of realizing the place, all the things we're talking about. I mean, there was this marrying of the cultures and going deep into how do we bring our faith into the world and sort of accentuate these things. But then the world just took it and ran with it in the wrong direction.
Commercialized it.
Totally commercialized it. And also it's a manifestation of the lack of value that the world really puts on it, that it could be commercialized. Like, what are people spending money on? What are people buying? It's because it's so frivolous. It's because it's so meaningless that it's funny. And I've been really, maybe I'm getting too extreme in this too. And I do, it's possible that I can be not extreme in some places and then other parts of me are more extreme. But, the kids, the cartoons, the Hotel Transylvania movies.
I've not seen it. I do know of it, but I've not seen it.
I mean, they're funny.
Yeah.
And we've watched them and the kids love them. And, we have, jokes. We'll repeat certain lines from the movies and things like that. But then, it just struck me recently. I was like, Dracula. Like, what is Dracula? This is like a mythology that goes back to actually drinking the precious blood of Christ and then inverting it into something evil. And then it's the blood that brings the dead instead of life. And like all these things, like that's actually the historical cultural history. That's the meaning of Dracula. And then it's like, we've cartoonized it. And he's a fun, Adam Sandler voiced cartoon who's kind of goofy and lovable. And it's like, oh man. So I'm not all about like, we've opened up channels to, evil spirits and we're going to all be possessed now. However, and this is maybe a tangent. This is probably a different podcast episode. Keep this, make a mental note to put this on the sheet later on in the year. But I think like sometimes we overplay the demonic and we get worried that like, oh, if you like read a word in Latin or somebody like did something or like a yoga class or whatever, now you're going to be possessed. And then we underplay how pervasive these distortions are. And so when it comes to death and suffering and dying, and then how important that is, we miss it. Another example is all the horror movies. All this gore stuff and all this like mutilation of bodies and all these things. It's like we're just making death into a commodity and really kind of making fun of how important death really is. So if we start thinking about that, I think if we go deeper, it's like it's really important that we let the church's liturgical cycles return us to what's true. And okay, maybe I watched Hotel Transylvania this year. Like, thank God for the month of November. Like, let me refresh, let me renew, let me reform, let me start again. And that way, okay, let me make new amends. Like, okay, this year I'm going to take death more seriously. I'm going to take evil more seriously in different ways. I'm going to pray for more protection. I'm going to deepen my sacrifices. I'm going to think about ways that I'm parenting my kids differently. And it's like, that's why these cycles make so much sense.
Yeah, there was so much there that I wanted to, we could just go deep on a number of it. One of them is just art in general. And
you're taking a tangent off the tangent. Here we go.
I think it relates in this way. So there's been a whole trend, in particular in the last 15 years, in movie making to humanize evil, to take really dark characters and make them relatable, even to the point of like, I have empathy for this person.
Yeah.
And it's like
Wicked.
Wicked is one of them. Dexter became a huge show, and that was a show about a serial killer.
Yeah.
And how like, we can actually we can watch this show and get to a place where we are emotionally manipulated into rooting for a serial killer. Or even Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. You have a Heath Ledger's Joker, which is just like evil incarnate, right? And it's dark and it's messed up. And there's no real, you can't grasp why he has the scars or why he got the way that he was. He just was chaotic. And then there was good trying to hold on to its principles in the Dark Knight. And it was this evil versus good, right? But then you move into this new phase of art and it's like we're supposed to fall in love with the Joker.
Yeah.
And be sad for the Joker.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to the point where like, let's empathize. Let's get to a place where we understand evil and are okay with it, maybe even invite it into our home. And we totally defang the strength and the power and the meaning of the good.
Well, this is also a recent family conversation we've been having is about K-pop and the Demon Hunters, the Netflix most downloaded movie of all time.
Really?
And you could tell our examples of art is very different. My kids have crossed the threshold into a little older, ready to start actually engaging with some of this stuff. You're still at the level of like
Daniel
Batman.
Tiger.
Yeah. No, you're at Batman. You're like Joaquin Phoenix and Heath Ledger. Like, that's great. You got to like dumb it down a little while before we get going again. But it's K-pop is even worse, and they're naming it.
Yeah,
they're like actually pointing it out, and it's really ironic because in the movie, and I actually really liked the movie on some levels, which is like scary, and obviously enough people liked it that it's the most downloaded on Netflix ever. But in the movie, the storyline is about being popular on social media and getting the most downloads so that the demons can actually fulfill their purpose. And they like name it. And they're like, we got your heart. Now we want your soul. It's like a song, and it's like, okay, there's these like good, these good fighters of demons. And then they end up winning in the end. But like one of the demons is like lovable and she ends up converting him. So you have like sympathy for the devil. It's like you start to like feel for these. It's like, well, they're not all bad. And then you don't realize it, but then you're like singing the songs. Yeah. And then it's the most downloaded video on Netflix ever. And you're like, wait a minute. It's like so meta. You're like, am I part of this? Like, we just got infiltrated. It's like in my house.
Right.
And so like there's all these good things to read into the movie. I think it was well done, but also like, I don't know. I think there's something else to be said for it.
And we can look at it like even just liturgically of, All Hallows Eve and then All Souls Day and the incredible goodness of All Souls Day and the church being like, we don't know everybody who's a saint, but we know that there are all these unknown saints and that there's the popular way of becoming a saint is not the only way. And so we have like this amazing celebration where you can think of the really good, virtuous, strong bedrocks of your family. Like, these people because they're like part of family lore. And you can pray with hope and look to them as a great example. And we've forgotten like how important it is to focus in on that aspirationally. And now we're taking the teeth out of really dark things. I used to say this in one of my talks that I used to give, and I used to give it on the 7 deadly sins. And it's like, let's put the deadly back in sin. And I would talk about how like, imagine if each of the deadly sins was a person and they were knocking on your door, like lust was knocking on your door. And you were like, no lust, no lust, no lust. But lust got in through a window and lust was in your house. Like, what would you do? What would be the appropriate, heroic, holy thing? You would kill it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here watching some of these movies and I'm like, what is getting in?
Yeah.
And why is the emphasis on me developing empathy for things that are misunderstood as opposed to me spending the majority of my time thinking about what is really holy and good and admirable and aspirational and difficult and challenging? Every time I have this is a bad form of empathy, but every time I'm like, oh yeah, this person's not so bad, I get worse. Like my standard is obviously like, well, I'm not as bad as that person, or they're not really that bad. It's not the aspirational component to All Souls Day, which is I want to be celebrating with these people forever in eternity in heaven with God.
Yeah.
You know, I want us to have that more in our art, but I also want to have that more in the household. It's not just like, oh, fun, silly, goofy things. It's like I want you to look at people to aspire to.
Yeah, and you could use fun things, and you can use art, and you can use movies, and you can it's a matter of being really intentional about it and drawing deeper into it. And it's also a both and. Like I think about again our work. It's like we can understand where people are coming from, and people are not all bad, and we are made in the image of God, and we have dignity. And actually, if we really hold that to be true, and we also call behaviors what they are, as good or bad, it becomes much more of a stark contrast. And bad is so bad because of how good a person really is.
Yes.
And it's not just so much like, they have this little bad habit, whatever. They've had a rough life, or they're just misunderstood. It's like, if that behavior is to be understood, then it completely disregards the dignity that they're made to be holy, and the incredible perfection of our infinite destiny that we're of that love, infinite love that we're made to be in communion with. So let's not just label it as misunderstood. There's a place for it. Maybe the person is misunderstood. Maybe somebody is not actually spending time to get to know the real person, but it's not the behaviors that need to be better understood. They need to be called what they are. They need to be held in context with love in a real relationship, which is what the whole foundation of mentorship is, towards a goal of flourishing that is what the saints represent. And if we water that down, what are we helping people get to? We're like, what do we need to work on ourselves for in the first place?
I was talking with somebody just today, and they were lamenting. They were like, my confidence in myself has been completely shattered. I was like, good. Like, good. I that's something worthy of celebrating. And the more we talk about it, I didn't even know we were doing a podcast today, so none of this is premeditated. But the more that we're talking about this, the more I'm like, man, what the church is really doing in November is it's calling us to have a date with our own potential and to reconcile the gap. Like, sit with the gap right now between who I am and who I could be. Like, spend a month sitting in that. And it sucks. It's not fun. But it is also wildly attractive when you're like, I'm not done yet. I still have more to go, and I can get better. And I think there's something really beautiful about that.
It's really beautiful. It is actually really hopeful, and it's really affirming. You know, when we give people an expectation, it's like, when it comes from a place of love, when the church gives us an expectation, when God gives us an expectation, it's like, he made us. He knows what we're capable of. He expects us to be saints. He's not mean.
Right.
He's not tricking us. He knows what we're capable of. We could be saints. And that's why he's calling us to be saints.
Yeah.
And he's given us the church to help translate that and communicate that to us.
I want to touch on one more thing when it comes to mourning, though, that I think is really important. And I want to get your take on this. I've never really talked to you about mourning, but I think you'll align up with this, but maybe not. And it'll be good if you don't, because it'll be good conversation. I think that there's an expectation, and I don't know where it comes from. I think there's an expectation for us that mourning ends, that there's like a time period in which, we're okay. Like I've crossed that threshold. I don't have to ever do that again. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking this because I was thinking about my dad, and my dad had a particular relationship that was really hard for him. And he got to a place of forgiveness. And then he became a grandfather. And it was like this new role reopened the wound.
Mm.
And it was like forgiveness had to happen all over again.
Oh yeah.
And he had to, and this person had died, and it required a whole re-mourning of that loss
Yes.
and of that relationship. And I almost think about mourning, it like comes up at different seasons, like layers of skin. Like we could only handle a certain amount of mourning and pain and sense of loss then, but then life circumstances come about, and we should be way more gentler with ourselves instead of saying things like, gosh, I thought I was over this, or gosh, I thought I got past this, or I thought I was free from this. I thought I could. Pain, struggling with temptation, suffering, mourning, like these are cyclical. They're not linear. And we are asked to handle what we can handle in the moment. And God is always, Dr. Brian talked about this a lot. It's like rings on a tree.
Yeah.
And we're just going deeper and deeper and deeper. And sometimes it means we have to keep mourning someone.
Yeah, I feel this intensely. I lost my mom in 2016, and we only had a few kids, and every new birth, I like reopen the same wound. I'm like, my mom is not here for this. Like, how much would I love my mom to be with me right now? And like, I think about my kids not experiencing my mom, like their grandma, and she, when I had our first and our second, it was like she was like a transformed person. Like she's one of the most clearest conduits of joy from us having kids. And it was like purifying, because it's like all that you could be stressed out, you get into the mess of everything, and obviously babies are wonderfully beautiful, and they carry a lot of that joy on their own without needing any extra help. But for the edges where we needed the help, it was my mom. And she was just like, she would lighten up any situation. And like, that's just gone now. And it's a loss. And I heard somebody describing this idea before, like the hole that's left in your heart never fills in. And the only thing that happens over time is that you build more of your personhood around the hole. So like you become stronger, and you become more nuanced and wiser, more prudent. But the hole's always there. And that thing that's missing is going to be reawakened. It's going to be re-triggered. It's going to be reprocessed. And yeah, I think you're right. There's a deeper story here. We could put this on the notes for another episode, but like, why do we want it to be simple? We want it to be a checkbox. We want to move on. We don't have to deal with that anymore. It's never the way it is. And it's always a deepening and a reopening.
It's the uncomfortable part of a developmental process, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like I'm in constant development, and an aspect of that development isn't that it's new things. It's deeper layers of repeated things.
Yeah. And that's what marks, I think. I mean, our whole culture is, and our Catholic Psych company culture is about reform. It's about constant conversion, constant renewal. And it goes back to St. Francis on his deathbed saying, let us begin again, for till now we've done nothing. Let us begin, brothers, for till now we've done nothing. Like, man, that stings a little. I don't like that, but we're going to hold it. And I think for now, we're going to wrap this one up. So let us begin again. For till now, we've done nothing in this episode, but I do hope it's blessed our listeners. And we'll have to do this again sometime. This is a great idea. I think we'll have to join forces again on a recorded fashion.
Impromptu
is always the best.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. God bless. Thanks for listening to the Being Human podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to help us spread the word and hear more, please head over to iTunes, leave us a review, and subscribe, as it really helps us to get our content out to more people. Be sure to listen next time as I take you deeper into what it means to be human. If you want more free content and information about what we do at the Catholic Psych Institute, head on over to CatholicPsych.com. God bless you.